Today we're at Robot Rumble, where we have probably about 50 robots. I believe it's about 14, 15 different high schools here, all competing. There was about 300 kids here as well, and kids design robots for a few months, then they come out here to battle them together.
I think there's four or five major robots. So there's a pneumatic flipper, then there's a horizontal or vertical spinner, which is just a piece of metal that spins really fast. Or there's a pusher, or there's a drum. Fast metal, or you flip people.
My favorite part is the competition day. Here, it doesn't matter if you spend like $1,000 on your robot or $3,000. Anything can go wrong. Like right now, we just lost. Our batteries came off, and we lost the whole round because of that. But you know, we get that. We're gonna put it better, and we're gonna win the next one.
So even though the competition's only 2 days, there's probably about 4 or 5 months of a building process that goes into it. And we manufacture everything ourselves. So we cut all the metal, all the polycarb, whatever else, do all the electronics. It's pretty labor intensive, but at the end you learn a lot and it's really fun.
So when I began, I didn't know how to use any power tools. I didn't know how to use any of the machines there. But now I know a lot more than from what I knew in the beginning. I think even if you think it might not be for you, give it a shot. Just go in for a couple meetings and see if you like it or not.
Spatula, drive it footlong into the corner.
My hope is that along with robotics, from what I learned and what I can use for future applications, it can help me get into a good school and get a good education.
I think my favorite part is really the beginning of robots and just seeing all the kids' excitement, and they're just so jacked to be here, and you know, seeing all their hard work come to fruition.
Test 1, 2, 3, ice cream.
I've had fantastic teachers throughout my entire education career, which kind of just persuaded me to become a teacher. I feel like the support throughout all the schools I've been at has been fantastic and just led me to where I am now, especially with being a culinary teacher. I always loved to bake and cook, and it took, you know, my passions and then me also wanting to work with kids and combined it into two, and it's just been fantastic.
Someone did the chocolate chips measure. You can add a little bit more if you would like.
Growing up, I went to Prospect. Coming back here has been fantastic. I feel all the support from everyone in the building, students and staff overall. It's just been great. It's been a great experience, especially being so young.
10 seconds, turn it off, and then scrape it down.
10 seconds?
Yeah, because you don't want to overmix it.
Being a culinary teacher is so fun. The kids are so lively. It's a very unique experience, obviously, because the kids are always up and moving. The kids cook every day. I think it's a nice break too for them, because obviously they're not sitting down for the full 80 minutes. They're up doing things. They're learning life skills. So I switched my major during my college years. I switched from elementary ed to secondary ed. Dual credit allowed me to do that. I did multiple dual credit classes in high school throughout a whole range of different things. They helped a ton. They saved me a bunch of time and money. If I didn't have those dual credit classes, I would still be in college right now rather than teaching, because I would have been in college an extra year. But the dual credit classes saved me, and in the long run, they helped me so much and helped me jumpstart my career.
Oh yeah.
I encourage all students to take any of these dual credit classes or internships, because they helped me so much and helped me fulfill my career dreams, and I hope that it will do the same for all the students.
That's good.
And away we go! This school year in our advanced diagnostics and our vocational class, we're going to be building this electric car from the Switch EV. And students are really excited about this, and it's going to be a great learning opportunity for them.
You want it under this? Oh, it's out.
I think over.
Putting this car together was so cool because it's just a great learning experience, and you're able to be hands-on building a car from scratch, basically, just a frame. And now you're seeing more electric cars on the road today, and so it's a good skill to know, good skill to have. You can fix your own car, don't have to pay so much.
Mike Kay did all the wiring with Isaac, and a couple other students did help as well, and they knocked it out of the park. They really did. I'm blown away, I really am, with what they accomplished.
Oh, my part, I did most of the electrical work, just like putting all the components together, hooking all the wires up, you know, cable management, make it all look nice. My dad taught me a little bit. Most of it just kind of like from experience, just watching videos online about electronics, making my own projects.
Through this project, it's helping me become a better engineer because I'll understand the systems and you get to see all the flaws in this. Like they put powder coat on the holes and then you had to tap them out. So it's helping me in an engineering design process, whereas it's more testing and prototyping to get the right result. It doesn't just come the first time. It takes time and effort. And I would say I have a better understanding of the components that go into an entire mechanical system.
Since I like electronics as much, I made something for the holiday season. This year I made it's like a controller. It's like 24 outputs, so you can plug in 24 separate channels, like sets of lights into them, and they chase around, they flash in different ways. So I won an award this year from the city of Elk Grove Village. Quite the accomplishment to have won an award from its entirety of Elk Grove Village, which is even more impressive. Out of 30,000 something people, I won the award.
And away we go! So now that the car's built, our next step is going to be working in the textbook, working on lab activities, and getting the students to actually do some hands-on learning with this vehicle. Our first visit is going to be to Mr. Burrett here, the gentleman who made this happen.
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
Good. Are you in your office?
No.
Oh, okay. No, I'm in the electric car right outside your office here in the window. Well, we try to pay a visit to Mr. Burrett and Mr. Kelly, but they're out at a meeting right now. It actually rides really nice. It really does. Acceleration is good. The handling's good. It's going to be interesting when the students get to drive it. It'll be their first vehicle they have driven without power steering. Let's see how really good the suspension is. All right.
Mr. Z is great teacher, great guy. And thank you to D214 for sponsoring this.
I'm very grateful to have Mr. Z as my autos teacher. He's always cooperative, even when I'm not the best student. He's always cooperative. I'm just thankful for all that he does for us and being an awesome teacher in general.
I am super proud of the kids and what they have accomplished. This learning opportunity, it really is amazing. What I'm really excited for is the memories that we've made for these students. They're going to never forget this project the rest of their life.
Welcome to the Student Services area of our school that's going to be under construction for the next 4 to 5 months. So this whole area will be redone and gutted kind of from the inside out.
I'm Katie.
Katie's a sophomore here at Elk Grove, is in our media pathway and will be shadowing and helping us documenting this process. So this mailroom, this is an original space where we used to have the copier as well as where teachers got their mail every day. We have now redistributed mail and this will no longer be here. In the future be our health services area that will have 2 offices for our nurses as well as 4 beds, a large waiting area, exam room, and to ensure that all of our students are served and supported when they're not feeling well. So moving on, we're going to be going into currently what's our security attendance DHSSW area, also known as Deans. So this is where your student would check in if they were either late or leaving for the day to check attendance. This is also where the deans are. If you've had any interactions with student behavior, this is where they would go. This area will be very similar to what it feels like now. The deans will still be here, but this will be different as it is going to be part of the health services area and going to be a kitchenette for staff. Here's a relic from the past, this big, large vault that I think all the schools have. This is no longer going to be here. It's currently kind of a large storage area, but we're going to be taking this vault out. Moving on, we have some other offices that we're going to be passing by. These will be become the registrar, the master scheduler, and then the associate principal of student services. So if you need to register or get a transcript, this is the area that you will be coming to. On this side, this is going to be, currently this is the College and Career Center. This is going to be reimagined into a much different type look and feel. It's going to anchor this area and it's going to be an all glass room that's really going to be able to serve our students in many different ways, whether it's visiting a college, investigating a career, or even having a large group meeting. That'll be like where we're standing right now. From here on out, this is where all of our counselors and support staff work. This will look and feel very different. The offices will be moved to this side of the space, and this wall will be all glass with entrances into the courtyard. It feels very dark and closed in, so we want to ensure that it doesn't feel that way anymore, and we can have lots of bright light and a really soothing and therapeutic environment for students and staff. All of our counselors will be organized in a different way now. It's organized in the pod style, so they're grouped by 2 counselors and 2 related service for each of the grade levels. So we'll have a freshman pod that's going to be grouped together, sophomore, juniors, seniors. So their offices will be all together. And so that's what this whole area will be those different groups of pods along with a small meeting room for those offices to use. And then we're finally entering the end of the hallway and going into the former health services office. This will now be offices for the freshman pod. This will look and feel totally different. We're also excited to improve this entrance to our school. So this will, I hope, match the foyer of door 1 and have a little more grandiose feel and welcome. It'll showcase our students and our staff and the things that we value here at Elk Grove High School.
Kick by Robbie Gold, end over end to the uprights, and it's goal!
Like as a kicker, it's awesome to think about him as a coach, and now that it's really happening, I'm really excited.
Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it! Man, that feels good.
Seeing someone that played in the NFL and is now going to be our coach just made me feel inspired.
Kick on the way, down the middle, and Gold is good at the buzzer!
Robbie Gold here, your new head football coach at Rolling Meadows High School. I'm super excited because I got a chance to meet the staff and the kids and the school community leaders. I'm looking forward just to be able to get in the building and start working with the coaches and the players and the school community.
Some of the Mustangs,
this
guys.
Is the field.
Let's get this place rocking.
Everybody at Rolling Meadows, it's just a lot of kind of starstruckness, but I think people have kind of settled into it a little bit, and I think everyone's just really excited and really hopeful for what the team is going to be able to do next year.
Oh my days, is unbelievable.
Kind of like a dream come true. I didn't really believe this was going to happen. You know, I thought it was like just rumors and get some other coach, but no, this is really a really cool experience.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to give back in the way that coaches did for me to get to where I was able to have a lot of fun playing sports. And to me, I can't see myself in a way where I can't be able to do that here for these kids. And then if you turn on the film for these kids, one thing you're going to notice is they have a lot of grit, they have a lot of physicality, they love and have a passion for football. And when you see that, that should get you excited about a program like Rolling Meadows.
The reason why I'm here is because, ever since I was little, I started doing construction. That's what I want to do. That's my future, the career path I want to take. Probably end up going to roofing trade school. What I really like about construction is seeing the finished product. It looks very nice, and it's all worth it once, you see it all come together.
Through the apprenticeship program, we actually offered some work over the early summer on this house. We had a handful of apprentices join us and work on the laundry room and the front porch. Oscar was one of those apprentices who joined us, and the work ethic he showed and the skill he's shown in last year in PAC and that summer opportunity really made us want to bring him on the site kind of to help run crews, especially as the walls go up. So it's great to be able to, empower him to be in charge of other students, and he's been a great help to us here on the site to keep things moving along.
So today I was tackling the bathroom. Mr. J told me that we needed to get it done ASAP, so we're getting it done ASAP. As you can see, my apprenticeship at Forest View, it was
Education for Thursday, April 11th, 2024. Can the secretary please call the roll?
Dessling, Here.
Fiorito.
Here.
Heineman.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
Rauch. Walker.
Here.
And Kreutzer.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was waiting for Mark to turn around. Thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Fiorito.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dessling.
Yes.
Heineman.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
And Kreutzer.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Can I have approval of the minutes from March 14th and March 21st, both open and closed? Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Palmer. Aye. Heineman.
Aye.
Dessling.
Yes.
Fiorito.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
And Kreutzer.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, if you could just give me a second here. Next on the agenda is public comments, and we do have one person that has signed up. The Board of Education and the district value comments from the community at our meetings as well as emails. We appreciate everyone appearing before the board and treat all with courtesy and respect. The Board of Education asks each person to please limit all of their comments to 3 minutes. However, if several people want to address the board on similar topics, the board president may limit the time to 2 minutes per person. The public comments agenda item will be the only time that the Board of Education will hear public comments during meetings. Although comments may be made on almost any matter related to the operation of schools, comments will not be allowed identifying individual students or staff members. As this is the Board of Education business meeting, the board practice is not to respond to public comments or questions at this time because this is not an open-ended forum. However, we do listen carefully. If requested, a written response will be provided. Please ensure that Ms. Keats has your full name and address on the sign-up sheet. To be fair and consistent to all addressing the board, the same protocols and procedures must be in place. On the podium is a green light that indicates your time has started, yellow light indicates 30 seconds remaining, and red light indicates 3 minutes have expired. So when I call your name, please come forward to the microphone and clearly state your name for the minutes. I have one person that signed up, Elizabeth Bauer. Please come forward. Thank you. Thank you. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Bauer, a grab bag of topics for tonight. First of all, wanted to read you the description of your summer school class on Latina Studies. This course is open to everyone. Learn about Latina contributions to U.S. history while also learning and practicing taking care of the South, mind, body, and soul. We will also jump into pop culture, discussing topics like Bad Bunny, TikTok, and Latina podcasting. Students will also have a choice about the topics we will finish with. Students will leave feeling empowered in their identity, regardless of whether or not they identify as Latina. I think that's great. I just want to applaud that. I don't know how it'll play out, but it sounds like it's intended to be inclusive, and I really appreciate it. Second, my youngest son is gearing up for college applications in the fall, so I'm also reading up as a mom. As you all know, the state of Illinois, in its infinite wisdom, has legislated that public colleges in Illinois must accept AP exam scores of a 3 or higher. But at least at the University of Illinois, many of those 3s count for little more than a few elective credits, which might help in programs with a lot of elective credits, but don't really meet actual degree requirements. Sometimes even 4s don't count for much, and you need a 5 to get credit for an actual class in European history, economics, psychology, and world history, maybe a few others I missed. For American history, which seems to be one of the most popular AP classes, the University of Illinois doesn't grant class-specific credit regardless of score. However, as I understand it, at one of the district schools, the econ teacher has found a way to ensure students get true credit for the class, and that's to teach it as both an AP and a dual credit class. So I'd like to ask you to expand use of dual credit opportunities to a wider range of classes, which are now just AP classes, to ensure students get the benefits that they've earned. Third, it has been in the news that the state of Illinois is switching from the SAT and College Board exams back to the ACT, which might be a fine decision in terms of cost effectiveness, and who knows whether the new or old exams are better, but it'll ruin the ability of parents or the community to know whether the local schools or the district is getting better or worse from year to year. You all like to think of yourselves as leaders, so I'd like to challenge you to show some leadership and come up with ways to measure and communicate to the community student achievement, which aren't dependent on the state and the state legislation. Oops, sorry about that. And which do a better job of measuring student learning. Finally, I know there are folks in the community who are engaging in a new push to get students to relent and agree to support low tax valuations for the former Arlington Park property so as to ensure the Bears relocate here rather than staying in Chicago. And this is absurd. The only reason why the Bears are now talking up a new stadium in the city is they think they can get some tax subsidies, and because the Lighthouse has now raised, or the White Sox have now raised this tax subsidy conversation. But please, stay the course. This is a billion-dollar game with big players. This is not for the District 214 to start throwing money into it.
Thank you. That will roll right into our next subject. Dr. Rowe, please.
All right, it certainly will. Thank you, Mrs. Bauer, for teeing that up for me. So it's been about a year since we heard, well, about a year for a lot of things, actually. About a year ago was my approval meeting. I've been celebrating and super excited to be a part of District 214. But at that same meeting, we heard from Eris Delianis and John Dunn of Cozen and Franzik on our efforts. And the board was in the midst of bringing these two groups on to ensure that the school district's interest had a seat at the table. So it's been a year since you've done so. Eris is with us tonight as our tax attorney who's provided guidance through the process of our discussions surrounding the tax conversations. Matt Glavin of Cozen serves as one of the lobbyists the district has hired in support of potential pilot legislation in Springfield. Throughout the past year, I and the other two school district leaders have remained in regular contact with both Eris and Matt, and wanted the board to provide you with a more formal update as to what's going on, as a lot of conversation has been in the media, and a lot of that is not necessarily accurate. So we want to provide you with a very accurate summary of what our efforts have been and the conversations with the village as well as the Chicago Bears. I welcome Eris and Matt to the podium, and they have a brief presentation that they will share. And then we'll be happy to answer any questions and discuss the topic.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the administration. My name is Eris Delianis from the Franzik Law Firm. This is Matt Glavin from Cozen O'Connor. Thanks for having us here for an update, legal and legislative update on the Arlington Park redevelopment. We have four topics we want to talk about tonight. That would be a status update on the property tax assessment, a discussion of the memorandum of understanding. I'll cover those two. And then Matt's going to cover the legislative proposals and the political landscape. So I want to orient everyone just so we all know what we're talking about here. So here's an overview of the Arlington Park site showing the major tax parcels. I've highlighted four of them. There's actually a fifth, a tiny little parcel. The biggest parcel is the one in blue. That's located within the boundaries of District 214. Directly to the north is the second largest one. That's in the boundaries of District 211 and District 15. The green parcel, that's also District 15 and 211, and then the yellow rectangle is District 214 and 15. There is a fifth parcel directly above the green rectangle, which I didn't flag. It's like a little sliver, and it wouldn't even be noticeable if it were there. But there are 5 tax parcels in total. And this is a 326-acre parcel within the village of Arlington Heights. So next slide, please. There's been a lot of numbers talked about, and so I wanted to just give you sort of the salient figures. So, obviously one number that is a fact is the purchase price for the Bears. They acquired the property for $197 million in February of last year. That's when the closing was. It's our understanding that the property was under contract from September of 2021. There are several appraisals out there. The school district commissioned 2 appraisals, one as of January 1st, 2022 at $150 million, a second as of January 1st, 23 at $160 million. The Bears have provided 2 appraisals, both with a 1/1/23 date of value, $60 million and 71.7. The 2 adjudicated values for the property, so the Board of Review's final assessment market value for 22 was $95 million. That was via settlement with Churchill Downs, the prior owner of the property. And then the second one is the one that recently came out for 2023 at plus or minus $125 million. That's with the Chicago Bears Football Club. And that was not via a settlement. That was decided by the Board of Review after a Board of Review hearing. And so those are the various value indications. I do want to talk about sort of the messaging we were getting from day one, and I'm going to define day one as April 18th of 2023. That's when we had a meeting over at Kimball Hill School. It's one of the District 15 schools. Ken Art was there, Scott's predecessor, and with Laz, the interims. Lori Hines, Lisa Small, Pat Moggy was there, and Matt and John Dunn, myself, Scott Metcalf, representatives from the village, representatives from the Bears, including George McCaskey, Kevin Warren, their CFO, their then general counsel, et cetera. So it was a very positive meeting. It was really more of a meet and greet. But the messaging from that day forward has always been the Bears were looking for long-term property tax certainty. That was their objective. And they said they did not want to pay more than $5 million a year in property taxes. So that is sort of the premise for a lot of the discussions that we have had since then. Next slide. So really the dialogue began on May 4th. The school districts received a letter from Kevin Warren. Districts responded on May 12th. That letter from Mr. Warren was offering a market value of $52.5 million for the property in terms of assessment as of 1/1/23 and 1/1/24. And then there are some gaps in this chronology. I'm not giving you every single conversation, every team's meeting, every get-together. But in July, we did get our appraisal completed and turn that over to the Cook County assessor and to the Bears attorneys. During these months, we were meeting with the Village of Arlington Heights about a memorandum of understanding, which I'll talk about a little bit more in detail. But those were productive meetings. The village has been a good partner, I think, to the school districts in engaging in that process to develop the MOU. We received the Bears appraisals on December 22nd. And then really in earnest, a lot of the discussion regarding what the assessment could be for 23 and hopefully subsequent years began in January. So the school districts made a 5-year offer to the Bears, would be for 23 through 27, that would have set the market value at $140 million and provided an average tax bill to the Bears of $5.2 million. So that was rejected. 3 days later, we offered $135 million for that same 5-year period. That would have met them where they said they wanted to be, which was an average tax bill of $5 million. Higher in 23 because the level of assessment was higher, significantly lower in 24, 25, 26, and 27. Next slide.
Harris, do you mind if I interrupt you and just ask the question, why can you explain why the level of assessment is higher in 2023, as that really seems to be a sticking point where misinformation has been flowing?
Absolutely. So Cook County, out of the 102 counties in Illinois, only Cook County classifies property based on the type of property it is. If you own a home in Lake County, DuPage, down in Carbondale, everything is assessed at 33 1/3 of fair cash value. And that's what the Illinois Constitution says, is property shall be assessed at 33 1/3 of fair cash value. However, it says in a county with a population of greater than 200,000 people, you can have a classification ordinance. So in 1973, Cook County created a classification ordinance to classify would residential property, which is Class 2, at a lower level of assessment, vacant land at a lower level, commercial, industrial, and apartments at higher levels. So as that ordinance has been in place, it's evolved over the years, but since 2009, vacant land is assessed at 10%, improved land, so a commercial building, a warehouse, a data center, that's at 25%. So for years and years and years, the Arlington Park site has been assessed as commercial land at the 25% level of assessment. What the Bears did last year, in order to reduce it down to a vacant land assessment, is beginning in May or June, they commenced demolition of all the improvements. My understanding is they finished that up by the end of the year, and there's an expectation that probably for '24, the assessor is going to revisit his 25% commercial level of assessment and change it to the 10% vacant land level of assessment. We don't know that that's happening, but no one would be surprised if that actually happened.
And that's been one of the sticking points of the conversation is obviously at a 25% assessment, 2023 is going to have to be a higher tax payment because 25 and 10, it's just the simple math. And I think it needs to be known, it's not, the school district's never opposed whatever level of assessment was given to the property. The county assessor is the lone person that may place that label on the property. And they said, under no certain terms, it'll be 25%, end of story. So even if we wanted to say it should be 10, it's not our call. And I think that's just an important point, I think, that we need to understand is we can't really achieve a sub $5 million tax bill at 25% without the total valuation of the property going very, very low. And we'll go into detail as to why that would be bad for a school district and that's why we've had to stick on this and why it's become an issue, because the overall valuation is of extreme importance to us.
Yeah, and Dr. Rowe, that leads to a real good point. Not only do the school districts not set the level of assessment, the school districts nor any other taxing body don't set the assessment. The Cook County assessor sets the assessment. So for 2022, he set the value at around $195 million. He did the same thing for 2023. He set it at about $195 million. The Board of Review in '22 reduced it via the settlement we reached with Churchill Downs. We were unable to reach a settlement in '23. The Board of Review did what it does, which is it held a hearing. Its analysts evaluated all the evidence, and they landed on $125 million at the 25% level of assessment, because the Board of Review cannot change the level of assessment either. They live with the level of assessment that the assessor places on the property. So thank you for that backstory. So we decided to do an in-person meeting. We actually met in that room right over there on Friday, January 26th. The three superintendents, folks from the Bears, myself, Scott Metcalf, and really tried to talk about, how do we get this thing done? Because the Board of Review hearing was on Tuesday the 30th, so literally 4 days later. And so they came to us with an offer, market value of $84 million, and so that would be about an assessment of about $21 million. That's at the 25% level, and then increase the market value to $125 in '24, but at the 10% level. That gets you an average tax bill of about $4.8 million. Districts said, that's beyond the low end of authority that we had, and looked at alternatives. So 110 and 140, average tax bill of 5.95, 115 and 135, average tax bill of 6.1 million. And so you might be asking, why 135, why 140? So the value that is set for these years is going to have precedential value for when the pilot base is frozen and the TIF base is frozen. So these numbers are not sort of abstract numbers that can be something other than what might set a path for the future. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the valuation on this property is really all you're going to see for the duration of a TIF, for the duration of the pilot. Once it's frozen, your tax base is really, your sources of revenue rather, are the property tax. That's where you're getting probably a little bit of EBF, probably a de minimis amount of federal money, but it's almost all the local property tax. As that property develops on the pilot side, the benefit really would be for the Bears, because they aren't paying taxes above this low level. All the value that's created are taxes they don't pay. On the TIF side, it's the village that'll benefit. As the increment grows, there's additional money that floods into that TIF fund and can be used for TIF-eligible expenses. So
And I think it's important to state that we've been very clear from the beginning with the Chicago Bears and the village that we're not opposed to a TIF in the area because we recognize all of the infrastructure that the village must build in order for this to happen, from roads to the sewer to just the updates on the just infrastructure all over. And then in addition, the pilot that's necessary for the stadium, like we recognize, we're not going to see the windfall of money that people seem to think we're going to see for 40 years, period. And so we don't get sales tax. Sales tax does not come to school districts. It's only property tax. So the base valuation is so important because for the next 40 years, that's the source of any income we get for whatever expansion we may have to have. The visuals are all that we have of what the Bears have given us, which is the conceptual picture they gave at the meeting at Hersey before this meeting last April. And that was estimated by the naked eye of 300 to 400 students potentially. Well, all of these students are going to Rolling Meadows. So 300 to 400 students at Rolling Meadows puts Rolling Meadows beyond capacity, which means an expansion. Well, do we have land at Rolling Meadows to expand? We do not. And as Dr. Hines noted last night in their board meeting, are currently going through an expansion with a referendum they had passed. And it's about $1.5 million for every classroom. So 300 to 400 high school students is not a single classroom like an elementary school. We're talking multiple classrooms and access of students that are in need in our pathways. So CTE equipment, it's mind-blowing what this could cost. She estimated 50 to 75 million for new elementary school. High schools are 100 plus million for new high schools. So it's the real dollars, and it's a real concern in addition to an $800 million of capital improvement needs that we already know we have for our other schools. And it's not me saying that crying poor by any means. We're a well-resourced district, but these are real dollars that a flat tax for 40 years that's a very, very minimal amount of money just won't support. So the MOU becomes of even more importance, and the base valuation in Springfield matters a great deal to us. We're not going to receive a windfall of money for 40 years, and we're okay with that. But we do have to educate our children. That's the point of the angle that we've played this entire time. It's about our students and ensuring that the backs of the Arlington Heights residents are not footing additional bills when the Bears are getting a sweetheart tax deal.
And another point, kind of building on that, is you'll recall about a year ago, Dr. Arndt was here as the interim, and he had firsthand experience on what happened at District 300 with that Sears EDA. And that turned out, and Linda knows, that turned out very negatively for District 300. They really did not approach it in a way that was protective of the district, and it was not generating the property tax revenue even close that it should have been. Ultimately, it's failed, obviously. The fencing is up out there to demo the whole thing, but it was really a disaster for District 300, and Ken Art made the point that you need to look carefully at this. And to the student generation that Dr. Rowe mentioned, that's not us looking at the drawings. That's a land planner hired by the school districts looking at student generation based on the mix of units, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, multi-story, row houses, et cetera. So these are real numbers based on the only visuals we have, which is the imagery that came out from that Hersey meeting. So let's go forward a little further. The Bears asked for the weekend to review the alternative offers the school districts had. Next slide, please. We did get a call. Scott and I got a call Monday morning, the 29th. Bears said, hey, we're rejecting the school district's offer, and they made no counteroffer. The next day, the 30th, was the Board of Review hearing. Several weeks later, the board issues its initial decision of no change, meaning they didn't change the assessment at all. They left it where it was at that $195 million market value. We got a call then on the afternoon of the 16th. The Bears simply reoffered some proposals that the school districts had previously looked at and had rejected. A few days later, February 22nd, Board of Review issued its final decision. That was the final decision. Palatine Township closed that day. all assessments were complete. And then 5 days later, at a village board meeting, the village rolled out its settlement proposal for the property, which, obviously that's kind of 5 days too late once the Palatine Township had been closed by the Board of Review. So now what we have learned is the Bears have filed an appeal at the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. If you look at what the current assessment is and you look at what they're requesting, current assessment is around $31 million. That gets you divided by 0.25 to roughly $125 million. Their requested assessment is $6 million. The delta there is about $25 million. So overall, among the 5 parcels, the refund would be about $7.2 million. Next slide, please. At a more granular level, you can see the 5 parcels. Like I said earlier, all 5 are in District 15. 3 of the 5 are in District 211. The big one that had been outlined in blue is in District 214. That's the one with the refund potential of a little over $4.8 million. In the aggregate, the refund exposure is a little over 7.2. Based on, we don't have a final equalization factor for 23, we don't have a final tax rate, but if you use the prior year equalization, prior year tax rate, Bears will pay about $8.9 million this year on that property. They are saying they should only pay about $1.7 million based on the complaint that they filed with the Property Tax Appeal Board. So
Eris, would you mind explaining what that means by refund?
Yeah.
And where is that, who's refunding the Bears should they win this PTAB?
Yeah, so, as they have requested it, the refund comes from the local taxing bodies. And who funds you? Your taxpayers. So the refund's really coming from homeowners, small business owners, every other property taxpayer within the boundaries of 214, 15, and 211 is going to pay this refund. So just based on what their claim is, District 15 would pay a refund of around $2.7 million. District 214's refund would be about $1.235. 211, it's smaller, it's about $566. The village's refund would be about $725,000. So this is what they are claiming. They are claiming they are entitled now to $7.2 million back, and that they should only be paying about $1.7 million on this property. So those are the facts.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Next.
Millie?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Could you go through those refund numbers that add up to 7.2 again and tell us what our exposure as a district is on that?
Yeah, so if you want to just go line by line, like that first parcel, that's the one I didn't put on the map because it's tiny. If they got what they wanted, the refund on that parcel would be $12,397.
Okay.
And then the next one is also in Districts 15 and 211. That's a bigger property. Refund on that one would be $1.75 million. The next one, this is the yellow rectangular parcel. It's in District 214 boundary. At the Bears requested assessment, the refund would be $321,000. And then the large, sort of oddly shaped blue bordered property, the refund the Bears would receive would be about $4.8 million. And then that greenish property on the far west side, about $329,000. So if you add all those up, you get to $7,244,544.
And out of the 214 refunded amounts, how much of that comes from the school district itself?
According to my math, of that $7.2 million, the district would be on the hook for refunding $1.235 million.
And that's because those dollars went a variety of places.
They've already been paid.
Oh, they've already
been paid, and we would have to reimburse.
Yeah, so the remedy really at property, at the PTAB, or had they chosen to go to circuit court and they chose to go to PTAB, but once the Board of Review completes the assessment process, the assessment is certified, and then the next step is the clerk calculates the tax rates, the bills go out, and then the remedy for the taxpayer, in this case the Bears, would be a return if there was either a settlement or somehow they were to win at PTAB at a hearing, they would get this refunded to them via the Cook County Treasurer.
So I think herein lies one of the intricacies of this that isn't discussed. So, the village's proposal came 5 days after the Board of Review made this decision, and while we would love nothing more than to settle this, if we settle this, it's going to result, no matter what we do, in any form of a settlement lower than what the Board of Review set, a refund to the Bears at this point. And that's where it becomes really, really challenging, is that if we were to do that, we have to make the decision that we're going to say, we're going to give some back. The village is going to give it back. The Park District is going to be impacted. The library board is going to be impacted. So it's complicated, and it's not us standing in the Bears' way by any means. It's we negotiated in good faith and worked with the village toward this MOU concept, because, as I said before, the school districts need to be made whole for the students that we educate, so we can continue to do so at a really high level. And a lot of that is accomplished in the MOU. To the village's credit, they've done a really great job in taking care of and working with us for our interests to make the school districts whole if it generates students, and agreeing to zone this property in a way that it wouldn't be all single-family homes, so that we can receive a similar number of students as what we receive from downtown Arlington Heights, which is less than 40 students. So that's a positive in terms of the financial side for the Bears and the village and whoever develops it, and then us in terms of what we can manage. But I think the real challenge here is how it impacts the taxpayers that no one's looking out for, that we have to keep in mind in terms of holding everyone honest to who's going to really foot the bill for this.
Yeah, and I'll say just what's been very frustrating through this whole process is that, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization looking to build a multi-billion-dollar stadium and looking, frankly, for hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in public subsidy, and it's come down to a lawsuit by the Bears seeking $7.2 million from the local taxing bodies. It's unfortunate, and I don't think it's a productive move on their part if they're going to go to Springfield or City Hall and seek these indulgences to have this hanging out there, in my opinion. I think they ought to withdraw this thing, so.
Do you have more?
I do.
Okay.
Actually, that's the last slide. I can move on to the MOU unless there are questions about any of the property tax issues.
Go ahead, continue.
Let's
Yeah.
hold our questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, at a high level, the MOU addresses what Dr. Rowe talked about, which is the student generation estimated at between 350 and 400. It addresses, at least as formulated, potential impacts of the pilot, because the pilot's going to freeze the assessment. What does that look like in terms of the payment? The payment in lieu of taxes, that's what pilot stands for. We anticipate there's going to be multiple TIF districts here, so will they be able to provide payments to make up for the students? The MOU would make the districts whole at 100% of your per pupil, so that's good news. And then the need for building additions and/or a new school if necessary. And then the one thing that we really haven't been able to land in the MOU is the long-term property assessment issue. That's the open issue, and it has been for months. So that's all I've got in my materials, unless you want to, yes, Frank?
Yeah. I do have a question about the MOU, and since that's where you're at. Okay, so we have the one long-term property assessment. That's the one sticking point in the MOU, correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay, and just for the people that are either in the audience or might be watching tonight, even if we came to an agreement with the Bears on this last issue, that does not guarantee that the Bears are going to build a stadium in Arlington Heights, is that correct?
That is correct.
I think that's the one thing that's missing, is that a large part of our stakeholders think that once we get the MOU agreed to, then the Bears are in Arlington Heights, but the fact is that even if we do come to an agreement on this last issue, that doesn't guarantee the Bears are coming to Arlington Heights.
That is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yeah. I've got a question.
Oh, sorry, Bill.
I do understand what the pilot program is, payment in lieu of taxes. Maybe it would be helpful to just explain what it is and who gets the dollars, who gets the benefit of the pilot program. In other words, where do the dollars go, and how does it work? Is Arlington Heights involved? What happens?
So a pilot is a type of economic development incentive. In this instance, it would, if you imagine that picture, it would freeze basically the upper triangle and the west side of the property at a certain assessed value for the duration of the pilot, anywhere between 25 and 40 years. That would be the total amount of EAV that would be available to all the taxing bodies for property tax purposes. So essentially frozen.
And for clarity purposes, the pilot is only the stadium.
Yeah.
So that triangle that would only incorporate the stadium, so that would be 211 and District 15.
And who sets that value?
Well, under the MOU, we would have a voice in setting it, but again, this is not a final document, and these values will be precedential in whatever that value ends up being.
So it has nothing to do with the Cook County tax assessor, other than the fact they may look at some of his data?
The assessor should not be part of that discussion, yeah.
So that it's probably set by the legislature or whatever?
You know, the way, say, for example, so Senator Gillespie's bill had the village and the Bear setting the frozen assessment on the pilot. The school districts were totally boxed out. Representative Moylan, his amended bill, which Matt can talk about, did provide for some input by the local public bodies on setting the pilot value. Obviously, these are both just bills, and neither of them's going anywhere at this point. So,
Okay.
so the way the pilot works, ultimately, you freeze the base,
Yes.
and then any value created above the
Yes.
base is never taxed. So, for example, let's say the value, just to keep the math easy, is set at $100 million, and let's say $900 million of additional value is added. The $900 million is never taxed under the property tax system. So that's really the incentive to the beneficiary of a pilot. They pay on a lower amount, they don't pay on the higher amount.
Okay, thank you. It's like a TIF.
Yeah.
Thank you, Harris. Good evening. My name is Matt Glavin. I'm a partner at Cozen O'Connor. Thank you for having me tonight. My presentation will be a little shorter than Harris's, but happy to answer any questions. We were hired about a year and a half ago by District 214, 211, and District 15 with a pretty clear message, which was make sure that if the Bears come to Arlington Heights, the students are made whole, right? We wanted to make sure that whether it was through a pilot, through TIF, through any other economic incentive, that the students in this community were not going to be put at risk. Last year, we saw 3 bills in Springfield filed during session. There was Senator Gillespie's original pilot bill. A few months later, Representative Marty Moylan from Des Plaines filed his version of a pilot legislation. And then later that session, Senator Gillespie filed a TIF reform bill. Those bills have not seen any movement this year. There's a lot of discussion in the halls of the Capitol. As you're very well aware, the Bears have been aggressive. Once the Bears started getting going, the White Sox said that they wanted to come down and get their piece, and the Cubs said they wanted some money for security measures. The Chicago Fire's looking for money. So once the Bears started seeking public financing, a lot of other entities started questioning whether there was money available for them. In April, we had a lot of changes. Kevin Warren started with the Bears. We had our first meeting with the Bears in the district. We had a new Chicago mayor win election in April. And it became clear that the Bears were refocusing on Chicago. From my perspective, that had nothing to do with property taxes. Locating a stadium in Chicago where the Bears have proposed it comes with some significant hurdles. I'm sure you all remember the Lucas Museum negotiations that occurred, whatever that was, 6 years ago. We have a public trust doctrine that all buildings along the lakefront must be open and available to the public. The current Soldier Field is considered a public space. That is how it can exist where it is. And it was a protracted fight when the Bears redeveloped that stadium in the early 2000s. The Lucas Museum was, it appeared to be on its way to a finding that it was not going to be public use, and they decided to locate that museum elsewhere. This doesn't mean that the Bears couldn't find a way to build on the lakefront where they've proposed, just directly south of the stadium, but it's complicated. The other important hurdle they have to clear is the public financing portion. The Bears have expressed that They would spend about $2 million of their own money or private money, but they're seeking at least $1 billion in public funds. At this point, there's not been a lot of appetite for that. Just this week, Senate President Don Harmon told the Illinois Chamber of Commerce that I can't remember his exact phrase, so don't quote me, but something to the effect of there's not a lot of appetite to publicly fund stadiums. The overall budget in the state this year and the forecast for next year is that belts will need to be tightened. We had a surplus maybe surplus is the wrong word, but there was a lot of federal money coming in during the COVID time, and that money is starting to run out. Belts will be tightened in social services and healthcare. So the thought that the General Assembly is going to make tough decisions across the state and then provide public funds for a stadium to, as Eris pointed out, a franchise that's clearly worth billions of dollars. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? Deals happen at the last minute in Springfield, but it is a large hurdle to clear. In addition, a large percentage of the Illinois General Assembly resides in Chicago. So as the Bears are negotiating between staying in the city and moving to Arlington Heights, those factors arise as well. The Bears still have significant time on their lease, so questions of how is the city going to deal with I think it's $600 million left on their bonds. Those are all issues at play that make putting together a deal complicated for the Bears. Certainly not impossible, but very complicated. The White Sox, when they got funding for their deal, it was through the hotel tax. Their bonds expire in about 8 years, in the early 2030s. So they're kind of fighting over those funds, right? Who's going to get those? The Bears would like to see the revenue from the hotel tax go to fund their stadium. The White Sox would like to see that revenue for a new stadium of their own on a parcel of land called the 78 in the city. The Senate President has strongly encouraged the Bears and the White Sox to work together. I don't know if that's happened. We certainly haven't seen it happen. There's been a lot of talk around the Capitol of the Bears introducing a legislative proposal. There's been nothing in writing. We haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything more than just rumors. Our team has been working with all of the stakeholders. We work closely with the Bears lobbyists. We work closely with the lobbyists at the Village of Arlington Heights that's recently hired. We have previous relationships with them and have worked on other projects. So we're trying to keep the lines of communication open to make sure that if back channels are what need to happen to make a deal come together that brings the Bears here but protects students, that we're part of those conversations. I will say that even with Senator Gillespie's original bill, as soon as we got brought on and started having conversations with her, she gave us her commitment that students would be protected, that the school districts would have a seat at the table, and we have seen that in communication since then. We are up against some deadlines in Springfield. Tomorrow is the deadline to move bills out of the Senate. Next Friday is the deadline to move House bills out of the House, and session ends on May 31st. That deadline of May 31st is the only real one that matters. With leaders' approval, other deadlines can be extended. If the governor, the speaker, and Senate president reached a deal late in May, it would still be possible for them to move it through at the last minute. But we have commitments from all three of those leaders to be part of the conversations. I think that concludes my comments, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn it over to the rest of the board, I did find this document from online. WTTW did an interview with Friends of the Park and Alderman from Bronzeville, can't remember his name, where the Michael Reese Hospital is located. So this document calls Illinois Public Trust document in the City of Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance, passed in '73, largely prohibits new building construction east of DuSable Lakeshore Drive. So there's an issue right there.
Right. Now, of course, the city council could always amend or pass a new ordinance. But you're absolutely right. There are a lot of hurdles for them locating on the lakefront.
Mr. Walker?
Thanks, Alba. I have one question. You know, there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of stories going around. What are we doing to engage the community and our staff and everybody, and how do we keep them informed with this?
Well, both Eris and I provide regular updates to the school board, to the superintendents. We have weekly meetings. I think in the last few weeks, there's been multiple meetings a week to keep folks up to date. Work closely with Pat and his communication team on strategy of when we want to be talking, when, and then what that message needs to be and who we want to deliver it to.
We haven't taken the step of regular communications with staff or sharing updates with our community because that hasn't really been education focused. That's certainly something that we could do. We could entertain that just to update them and get the truth out. But that's not a step we've taken thus far.
I'm just worried about the white noise. It's a lot of distraction for, water coolers, whatever. Everybody talks about it, and if we're not telling the whole story or not enlightening everybody, it becomes an issue then. So how do we stay ahead of that? I guess you have a good plan, and then between you and Mr. Mahagi, we'll work it out, I guess.
We are cognizant of not negotiating against ourselves, right? To the point that Eris made and that I made a little earlier, I do not believe that the holdup of getting the Bears to come to Arlington Heights is $3 million spread over 2 years and property taxes. There are a lot of other issues at play, and we're cognizant of, not extending too much to the Bears, only for them to use that to go to the city of Chicago and ask for more there.
It kind of feels as if that's at the point where we are, that it's. If we continue to try and seek creative ways to convince them to come, that's kind of out of the purview of what we should be doing as a school district. If the Bears choose Arlington Heights, we welcome them with open arms and will be wonderful partners with them and would love to be as creative as we can to help make that something palatable for them, as long as our students and families are taken care of. And we believe we did that when we were at the table. We just couldn't get a deal done, unfortunately. But if they choose Arlington Heights, we're here to welcome them with open arms and look forward to a long, healthy partnership.
Thanks. I have one other question. Never is a pretty strong word. So with this pilot, never ever that property will produce income? Well, it would be for the duration of the pilot. I think it said between 25 and 40 years. That's what the current bills, both Senator Gillespie's and Representative Moylan's bill, provide for a pilot no less than, I think, 25, no more than 40 years. So that would be
it's a lifetime.
The time frame. It's a long time, yeah.
And I'll have to go back and look at the language again, but I do believe there was like a 7-year rebalancing.
Something.
So that so it wasn't whatever the value was set on year 1 was the same as in year 40. There were check-in periods where that value could change with this joint review board that the schools would have a seat at the table.
Got it. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Palmer?
I have a few questions. So my first one is on the $5 million tax bill, right? The Bears saying they wanted approximately $5 million. That doesn't mean that $5 million comes directly to the school districts, correct? Can you please explain what happens with that money and what that looks like?
Yeah, so if somebody pays $5 million in property taxes, that payment is made to the Cook County Treasurer. The treasurer then distributes the funds pro rata based on tax rates to all of the public bodies. So as a general rule, the schools have between, say, 50 and 60% of all property taxes, so they would get that portion. You've got libraries, you've got park districts, you have the county, you have the forest preserve, you have the water reclamation district, you have special service areas, you have TIF districts in Cook County. TIFs absorb about 9% of all property taxes. You have municipalities, you have counties, you have junior colleges. It would be distributed to all of those entities.
So when there's evaluation, just looking at evaluation and how it results in a tax, it's not that it's a straight up percentage, right? We talked about the 25 and the 10, but there's other things that multiply in there, correct? Could you put that in sort of layman's terms, so we could all understand it.
Yeah, so Melly, here's what goes into a property tax bill. The assessor's assessment, the Board of Review making or not making an adjustment to that assessment. The Illinois Department of Revenue calculates an equalization factor every year for all 102 counties. As a general rule, the Cook County factor's been 2.7 to 3.3 for the last dozen years. The county clerk calculates the tax rates. All of that information is delivered to the county treasurer, who prints the bills. The U.S. Postal Service delivers the bills, and then people write checks or do ACH payments to pay it. So there's a lot of input on how you get to a tax bill.
Okay, so I have a question about the refund. How likely is it, and perhaps this is a question you can't answer, that we'll be asked to return funds? And is that something that for this particular one, we should be escrowing or setting aside funds because we have exposure on them? Like, let's not spend it, we might have to give it back. Or is that something that we have exposure annually with other funds, right? I mean, does that happen? Do we do an annual refund of a certain amount? I guess that's a question for you, Mr. Keeley. And I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize, but I'm worried about our exposure on a refund.
So the number the Bears are asking for, that $6 million figure, that assumes that the PTAB would agree with their lower appraised value, and the PTAB would give them a 10% level of assessment, treating it as vacant land. So those are some big assumptions that would actually happen. The vast majority of appeals filed at the PTAB are settled for much less than 100% of what the taxpayer is looking for. The school district has a right to intervene in these appeals. You will get official notice of this filing, probably within 60 to 90 days. The Cook County Board of Review provides the notice. It is sent via email to Tim's office, and then you have the right within 60 days to intervene. District 214, District 211, 15 have a historic practice of intervening in the larger cases and defending the tax base as an active participant in those cases.
We're actually notified every time a $100,000 or greater filing is made.
Okay.
So it's actually a pretty common practice that the appeals are filed with the Property Tax Appeal Board, PTAB, and then Tim and his office will work with that, and we'll intervene if necessary.
Tim, if we were to have to refund a property, would all the other properties in the district pick up where that refund was?
It's a great question.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Normally I'd answer that for you, but we've got the expert in the room. And again, Eris and our team work together on these as they come in. So as Dr. Rowe indicated, yes, these are coming in constantly. And, over time, we do accumulate quite a few, but they do offset year over year. And again, I'm going to defer to the expert to explain that process.
But your point is, and
yeah, right.
It's, if the Bears get a reduction, the overall valuation of property within District 214 does not reduce.
Right.
So
that refund,
everybody else
go ahead.
would see just a slight increase to cover the difference.
In their tax
Yeah, I
bill.
mean, here's a way to think that I like to think about property taxes. It's sort of a pie slicing exercise.
Right.
So if I am able to cut myself a smaller slice of the pie, that means everybody else's slice has to be bigger.
That's right.
So to the extent the Bears get a small piece of the pie, normally you want a big piece of the pie. In
Yeah,
property
right.
taxes, you want the smallest piece. That means everybody else's slice is bigger. Your slice is bigger. The people who run industrial buildings, they have to pay more, et cetera.
I have at least one last question. So is there any talk in Springfield of perhaps the state, instead of funding stadiums, funding education, such that our taxpayers wouldn't have to pay large amounts of property taxes and then could use that money elsewhere?
Yes.
Oh.
Listen, I would tell you, and Matt can probably back this up, the state of Illinois actually does one of the best jobs in the country at ensuring education is funded, but they still haven't met their constitutional requirement of 51%.
Right.
But the state of education, especially in recent years, has taken really good care of schools. EBF is working. We don't realize all those dollars, but the school districts that are in Tier 1 and Tier 2 are seeing increased funding, and it's working for them, as it should.
And I will say to your question, there are a lot of people asking that question, not just about education, but about new arrivals, about healthcare. Right? There are a lot of needs in the state. So I think when we hear President Harmon say there's not a lot of appetite for public funding for a stadium, it's because they'd rather use that money for other things.
This isn't just an Illinois thing. Look at what's happening around the country. Two-time Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs just lost a referendum in the state of Missouri for public funding for their new stadium upgrades. And I can tell you, as someone from Missouri whose family are ravenous Chief fans, they love their football. And if they're not going to support that financially, I can't imagine Illinois is interested in doing that either, with taxpayers paying more so the Bears can have a new home when they are the, I believe, 5th most profitable organization in the NFL at $200+ million in profit annually.
I think there's no question that there's a love of the game. I mean, I love football. I just want to make sure that D214 and our students are the focus of this board and our actions. That's all we're here for.
And I will say that when we're in Springfield, we are never saying we don't want the Bears to come to Arlington Heights. We are there to say we welcome the Bears. How do we do it in a way that protects the students here?
Thank you. Mr. Fiorito?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one of you guys can answer this, but I'm going to piggyback off what Lenny said about the white noise. So the current property at the racetrack, do we know what the property is currently zoned as?
Oh, they changed that.
You know, that's a great question. I don't know the current zoning. It's probably some sort of institutional zoning, legal non-conforming use, because it's been there forever. But Frank, I don't know the exact zoning.
Okay, so let's just say it is that, because I know there's people out there that think that if the Bears don't move there, we're going to get 500 Amazon buildings and migrant centers and other, such things. So if they did want to build, say, Amazon warehouses on the property, what's the normal process?
Well, the village is in complete control of development, so anyone who is interested in doing development would have to go before the Village Plan Commission, which is a body that evaluates plans, gives feedback. Ultimately, any approval of zoning would have to be by the village board. I mean, they have complete control over that.
I believe, Eris, that the village has updated the zoning, and it's zoned for a sports complex of some sort.
Overlay district that's been
And to be fair to the village, they've stated regularly that it will not be a warehouse distribution or data center.
Understood. I just wanted to clarify for anybody who's in the audience that if the Bears decide that they're not going to build a stadium there, it's not like they could just decide whatever they want to build there or sell it to somebody that wants to build whatever they want. They have to go to the proper channels, and the proper channels is the Village of Arlington Heights for rezoning. Is that
That's correct, Frank, yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Dustling? Anything?
I've already spoken.
Okay.
I have one.
Oh, good. Mr. Walker?
Eris, I know you explained the pie, but just for me, this is the way I look at it, and just tell me if I'm on track or not. So 10 of us go out to dinner. We're going to split the bill evenly, but somebody, the 10th person, says, wait, I only have $20. So we all enjoy a nice meal, whatever it is, and 9 people would pick up the existing tab less $20. That's really what's happening with the Bears and the $5 million tax cap, correct?
That's a great way to describe it, yes.
Okay. I just have a lot of family, and I know how to split bills, so I just want to put it in my own head. Thank you.
Ms. Palmer?
So no matter who uses that property or for what use, our focus in the district is how does that impact our students in D214? So this could be or would be a continued conversation over time just to make sure that our students and our schools are protected in that.
I think that's where our interest in the MOU really comes into play. If we can sign the MOU, and right now we're in alignment with the village on what what that relationship would look like. And I think that's important, and that conversation hasn't been here. We've said a couple of times, the village has been a really good partner in cooperating with us on this. And I think that we remain in alignment that our students are what matter most to us. We want to be sure that our students receive the world-class education that the families that have chosen to live here expect of us, and we're committed to ensuring that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, audience, that took so long, but it was needed. I think the community needed to hear our conversation. Moving on, board reports. Does any board member would like to report? Mr. Dusling?
Yes, I would. First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Palmer and congratulate her for her 16 years with Navigant Law and for inviting me to their anniversary party. Thank you very much the other night. Also, Tuesday, there was a college fair here at Forest View, and there were about 1,300 students that came. And as I was standing at the entrance watching them come in, there was at least one parent with each student. So overall, there were probably 2,500 plus people that were here at the fair, with 200 colleges and universities set up. It's an annual event, and it's very well attended. And you can see the eagerness for those that are going to college, and their parents certainly looking at it. And this year, they held a college loan seminar an hour before the 6 o'clock opening of the fair in the theater. It was packed to the walls, standing room only, and they did a very good job explaining the process for college loans. The other thing, I attended the Midwest Robotic Regional at UIC on March 29th and 30th. An exciting event, 50 teams, most of them from the U.S., some from overseas. Wildstang, the robotics team from the district, Team 11 finished second, and Team 112 finished fourth. It's always just a super event. And of course, Arts Unlimited this year was great. Awards to students from each of the schools, performances by the students from each of the schools, and amazingly, Wheeling High School started a mariachi band this year. I can't believe it. The band director, Marilyn Barrera, decided early in the year that she was going to have a mariachi band, and there's choral people in it, there's orchestra people or whatever. They did it at a hospitality in this room before the session. They were fantastic. They were really amazing. So it was a good day. Thank you.
Mr. Fiorito, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, I do. I went to the science symposium at Wheeling High School, and I did see the mariachi band, by the way. Some of them were out in the hallway performing for all the different teams that were there. You guys did a great job, Brad. It was really phenomenal. I was very impressed by our students from both Wheeling and Elk Grove that had projects there, but overall, just the majority of the projects were just nothing short of incredible. All these kids, no matter what school they were from. I was at the admin staff recognition this week with Mr. Heineman. I just want to congratulate somebody sitting at our table who won an award, and that would be the lady over there in the red hair and the keys. And last but not least, I am going to be representing the board at the April 23rd Startup Showcase at Prospect High School. Junior achievement is near and dear to my heart. Spent 16 years doing it, and I'm looking forward to all the entrepreneurs and what they have to offer on that day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Palmer?
Just a couple things. And, I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, Ms. Kreitzer, but we were able to attend the PTO organizations that came together to talk. This happens a couple times a year, telling us the things that are going on at the different schools. And I have to say that this last meeting was great to see sort of their interactions, they're communicating with each other, telling each other how they're supporting students. And Ms. Kreitzer here came up with a great idea of coming up with a Google Doc where they can share information and further kind of give ideas of how to do things and what's going on at the different schools to help each other out. So that was terrific. Earlier, before this meeting, we attended the student Student Advisory Council, I'm stumbling, where students from the different schools, as recommended by principals or other staff members, come together to kind of give us an idea of what's going on in the building from their level, and really participated and had some great discussion during that. So those students are always open, honest, telling us things they like, things they think we could do better, things that are going well, things that are opportunities to improve in the district. It's really good feedback. This morning I started out with Kalish Awards, so I've had a full D214 day, and that was very interesting, and to see some of the applicants for the Kalish Awards and the things that are going on in the arts in the district are just fabulous. And last but not least, at my firm, we had a student intern this spring, and she was a delight, absolutely excellent addition to the team, wants to be a lawyer, and so we gave her a view, sat with her at each position in the firm, talking about how the firm is run, how do you sort of make the donuts, and what goes involved in being a lawyer and in the practice. And she was a really good addition to our firm. We all miss her. So wish she could be a permanent, but I guess we have about 7 years before before that could happen. Anyhow, that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
I just have a quick one, but it's an important one. You know, we talked about it last board meeting, the inaugural specialized game with the students at specialized school. I got to tell you, I walked in and, we've watched games at Hersey before of Special Olympic teams when they played Barrington, and it's an amazing camaraderie type atmosphere for the students. But Val put me in with all the educators that were right behind the bench, and I just wanted to sit off to the side and watch and pay attention. And all the students came by, they said hello, and then I think Linda was there too. And it's such a moving experience, and all the teachers are telling me, it's not going to be like what you saw at Hersey. I said, why not? These guys are out to win today. They've been talking trash to each other all season, and they're out to win. So I said, okay, I'm watching. They're out to win each other's hearts, I will tell you. They stop, the guys that were very proficient at it, stopped, gave the balls to less fortunate people, and just stopped the complete game and let them score and everything. So even in the most competitive streak that they've ever seen, it's still humanity at its best. So if you ever have a chance to do that, I would tell you it's the best hour in the year that you will ever see. And that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Great ending. Okay, so we're going to move on to Mr. Hyde. No, Mark said he didn't have anything. Moving on to discussion items. 8.1.1, Mr. Keeley.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So the first item we've got a few items here from our procurement department in terms of RFPs and bids, and as has been typical, we're going to use this evening as an opportunity to discuss it, answer questions, et cetera, and then at the second meeting of the month, we're going to bring it back for approval. The first one is the pool supply bid. This is a bid for a 3-year term. It's on the heels of a 3-year bid, or a 3-year contract that is expiring. We have a summary here, as you can see, a significant increase in cost, and the last contract was a 3-year contract. It was agreed to or approved by the board in April of 2019. So there was a pandemic in the middle of that, and apparently that impacted the chlorine price. And honestly, in preparing for this meeting, I'm ashamed to say I learned more about the chlorine price index. I didn't know it existed. So anyway, it's about doubled since the time it's going to go in my, yes, it's in my toolbox now. So, but at any rate, it's about doubled in that time frame. So the numbers you see there are significant increases over the last contract, but again, we're going to take advantage of locking in 3 years worth of pricing. Quite a few vendors we reached out to. including one that has a cooperative nationwide purchasing contract. However, they were unable to meet the specifications for the bid. So with that, I will entertain any questions. I do want to thank Annetta and her team as well for their work on this. The procurement department were the ones that get to bring it to the stage, but they are doing all the work day to day to get us the information.
Didn't have to do pool supplies in Addison, did you?
No pools in Addison.
Didn't think so. Okay. Board members? Okay.
Thank you very much.
District uniform bid, please.
Great, thank you. So, again, another 3-year contract on the heels of a former 3-year contract. It was sent out to multiple vendors. We sent it to 10 vendors, including one national purchasing cooperative. There's a bit of a theme here. You know, with Mr. Yulee and all the construction and some of the equipment and whatnot, we're buying off national cooperative contracts. We're looking to do the same in our world. So as we do these as an individual 214 bid, we're also checking the market to see if there's a more efficient way to do it. So again, we checked a nationwide co-op. They were unable to meet our specifications. The lowest apparent responsive bidder is Michael's Uniforms. Ironically, they have been our vendor for at least the last 9 years. That's when electronic data tails off in our department. But they were the lowest bidder the last 2 times. And thankfully, this time, when we look at the pricing that's been offered, it's on par with the current year's pricing. So obviously not driven by the chlorine index. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Board members? Okay, great. Benefit platform RFP.
Great, thank you very much. So Kelly and our insurance department, along with our insurance committee, which includes Mr. Dustling, have been working for a few months now on a benefit administration platform procurement. And so this is the platform that we use. Well, the solution we're looking for is a platform for our employees to do open enrollment to access their HSA and FSA benefits. The partner will also handle our ACA reporting as well as COBRA administration. That is currently done through American Fidelity. We've had that for 2 years now, and we found that the functionality of their platform does not necessarily meet our needs and our employees' needs. So certainly the goal at all times is to make sure that our employees know as much as they can about their insurance, that it's readily available, and that, you know, in addition to self-servicing options that the new platform will provide, Ms. Janice and her department also provide assistance to folks. So anyway, this was, we had 5 vendors that responded to the RFP, and we had 3 that were invited to participate in a multi-round interview process, if you will. It was a 3-round process. The finalists were B Swift, Empyrean, and Business Solver. And they have a product called Benefit Solver. We intend to bring a recommendation to the board at the next meeting for Business Solver. They are the most advantageous when run through our rubric. It is certainly a qualitative RFP, but the pricing came in quite tight between all 3 of those vendors, and it would be a 3-year agreement, and it would include the implementation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Dustling, do you have anything to add?
Pardon?
Do you have anything to add? You were on this committee?
You know, the process for interviewing, pardon me, the process for interviewing each of these companies was extensive. We're talking 3-hour interviews. We're talking a whole range of employees that are there with the various levels of service that they have in the various departments. This was not just a read the reports and see what it looks like, and then listen to some sales pitch. These were really in-depth. I want to give Mike Vargas and Kelly Janis and Jennifer Tomasati, who's there in the group, that really put this together well. And I totally agree that looking at all the interviews that we did, the Business Solver has certainly got what we're looking for. I mean, just the interface with where the employees can interface themselves with the system, which will not only be good for them to get knowledge, but will also help the people that are administering within the district become more efficient at what they're doing. So it was really, really good. It was good.
Right, one quick thing I will add, in reflecting and speaking with the team, Business Solver definitely had the most K-12 school experience. They have tons of references in the state of Illinois. In fact, the team did an extensive reference check, but I joked and I said, just ask me, I'll give you a reference. In Addison, my former district, we were one of 120 districts in the co-op in the consortium, and we utilized their product. And in spite of the fact that we were one of 120 and they had a lot of clients, we were never wanting for more attention. They were pretty well dialed in. So I'm excited that we're going to be working to finalize a contract to bring back to you.
I believe that they certainly flew to the top. I mean, there was no doubt about it. They were really had their act together. They knew what we were talking about. They didn't come in and say, what do you want, and then try to react to that. They knew and they knew what we wanted, and they had it all set out for us.
So you kind of addressed my question, and that was, were there any districts that are as large like ours or somewhat comparable to us that used Business Solver or any of the other?
Yeah, if I think about the EBC, the Educational Benefits Cooperative, I think Decatur School District is the largest one in that group, and I think they're like 12 or 13,000 students, so probably similar number of employees. But if you look across that entire cooperative, you're talking 30+ thousand lives that are insured there. So they certainly have the chops, and they understand how Illinois school districts work.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, and thank you for your work on this, Mr. Dustling, as well as Mr. Keeley. So we're down to operations. Mr. Yulee, IHSA.
Thank you. This is a typical board agenda item this time of year, where we seek membership renewal for the Illinois High School Association. And essentially, we need to certify that our school districts will abide by the IHSA Constitution and bylaws. So we are seeking board approval on the renewal of the memberships for Buffalo Grove, Elk Grove, John Hersey, Prospect, Rolling Meadows, and Wheeling High Schools.
And to be clear, there is no cost associated with this membership.
Right, thank you for pointing that out.
During, I think it was one of the COVID years.
Yes.
There was a membership.
They dropped the membership fees and have not brought them back as of yet.
There was none, and then there was, and now there isn't anymore.
Yeah, they were in a tiered model, and then they've since
Right.
dropped that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Any questions? Okay, Prospect Pool repairs.
Thank you. So we are seeking approval to replace the pool basin plaster at Prospect High School. The quick summary here of the plaster work at Prospect High School is we have a debonding issue that we've been dealing with for a little over a year now. We've tried multiple patches and repairs. When we have to conduct that work, we need to drain the pool. After the second time that we've conducted that work, each time we have to refill the pool, that's a rough cost of $13,000. Our team decided to have a full-scale assessment done. So we had a diver actually go in the pool and conduct a sonar scan and found that over 50% of that plaster and was failing, which indicated that we need a full-scale replacement. So we are seeking approval to conduct that work this summer, which is a full-scale pool basin plaster replacement. And to add, the rough life expectancy of pool plaster is about 7 to 12 years. So we're in year 8 of that pool.
Okay, that was my question. How old is the pool?
Yeah, it's 8 years old.
How does this impact us?
So we're going to do the work over the summer, and we've worked with our buildings to accommodate our Prospect programming, community ed programming in the other 3 pools this summer.
Okay, so it's been worked out.
Yes.
Questions, board members? I do. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to take too much out on you because I know you're kind of new at your position, but Prospect is our newest pool.
Yes.
And being the fact that I have a family of swimmers in my household that are part of not only the high school program, but they're also part of the community ed aquatics. And the number of times that Prospect has had problems with their pool seems to be endless.
Yeah.
And Buffalo Grove and Wheeling and Elk Grove, nothing against their pools. Prospect, to me, is the crown jewel, and they seem to have very little problems, and I don't think, I haven't been on the board very long, but I don't recall being down for a summer or any point of time for basin plaster replacement. So I just want to ask, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but why are we not seeing this at the other pools, and why does this just seem to be happening at Prospect? Because from my standpoint, we are really putting our community ed programs at a real disadvantage. They're growing, they serve a great purpose to the stakeholders in our community, but now we're trying to figure out how we can get the swim lessons, the summer swim program. It's all creating chaos. And not only that, but you have young adults that are part of our high schools that are employed by these programs, and now all of a sudden, they might not have jobs for the summer because we don't have a pool at Prospect. So I'm just going to say no answer responded, but we really need to get this figured out because it just seems to be never ending. Sorry, Chris.
Wholeheartedly agree. I think that this is why we're taking this approach, is to go with the comprehensive fix in hopes that we won't have to deal with this in the foreseeable future.
Other board members? Mr. Walker?
Yes, I have a couple questions. So if it's failing at Prospect, what are we learning from there that we can apply to other places so that we don't run into this again? Because it's costly for this.
Yes. So the high level, my high level understanding is that essentially you have the concrete pool, you have a bonding agent, plaster, and then the tile itself. The critical component with the bonding is the first 6 months that allows it to cure effectively. So we've also contracted with an independent company to monitor the water levels to ensure that we're exactly where we need to be to allow that to fully bond and then hopefully last a lot longer than 8 years.
So is there a warranty that's involved in this, and then what do we do to protect that warranty?
This project comes with a 5-year warranty.
And the existing pool, what's the warranty on that? And what
The plaster was a 2-year warranty on the existing plaster.
And then, I know we all like experts, but there's experts that come out and measure the depth of the pool and tell us we're okay?
Yes, yes.
I have to learn about chlorine levels too, because this is fascinating. I mean, I got to learn how to get that.
Not the depth, the content, like the pH, chemicals,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Oh, I get it, but.
If I said depth, I apologize.
Ms. Palmer?
Well, I mean, this is going to sound like I'm joking, but I'm not, actually. We have a chlorine increased cost. We have a pool that has issues with bonding agents. Do these things happen if we, and I don't even know what the astronomical cost would be, but if we went to a saline-based pool, is this, I mean, okay, it's a whole new direction, I'm just throwing it out there. I'll retract the question for now. But, it seems like, we should be thinking outside the box on some things like this.
That's fair.
Anyone else? Thank you. Dr. Lopez, you're up with teaching and learning.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much, members of the board, Dr. Rowe. So we wanted to share with you today the recommendations we made to the District Executive Council regarding the integration of our ESL 1 students into our comprehensive high schools. So in April of '23, you might recall that we had a state audit of our English learner program. That was the first time actually that we had been audited since 2015. And from the time from that audit in 2015 to today, we've increased by 1,700 students, the number of EL identified students in our district during that
Dr.
time.
Lopez, how often are they supposed to do the audit?
The audits are typically closer to 3 to 5 years, and they just, we were at the bottom of the list, yes.
Okay.
Not that we need to wait to be audited to check our program, but the reality was that even in just since the pandemic, our numbers had doubled. So it just accelerated significantly from a program of around 400 students to 2,300 students. However, during that growth, our programs didn't change significantly, okay? And so it was certainly time for us to relook at that. And because of the audit and then our corrective action plan to the State Board of Education, we included our recommendation that we're going to expand all of our required program components and services to all of our school sites. So this is sort of part of that plan, or one piece of many components. So our Newcomer Academy and its new facility, we had designed it to serve about 120 students. We used to typically start the year with around 20 students and end at 60 to 80. Currently, I think we're at 220, okay? So because of our current enrollment, and certainly because of the state audit, we realize we need to facilitate a transition of our ESL 1 students. The Newcomer Academy, the International Newcomer Academy, serves both students that have minimal to no English language acquisition and ESL 1. So those are two different groups of students. So what we're talking about is those students that have some minimal language acquisition and are testing into ESL 1. And so the District Executive Council created a working group to develop recommendations and the plans for the transition. We're going to have 4 staff members with us here this evening who I'm going to ask to come sit in the front row so you guys are ready to present. Who's going to provide an overview of these plans. Our director, I did want to mention that our director for English Language Program, Veronica Gott, who led the work, really wanted to be here, but she certainly has a solid team that I'll be introducing momentarily here. So, does this happen every time? We got it. All right. So just real briefly, so the purpose of the plan is certainly recognize that we've had a steady increase in the population of newcomer students, recognizing that home schools have access to special ed services as well as broader levels of opportunities for students. And finally, that the integration of language and content learning along with the in-class support certainly can be provided within our comprehensive high schools. So this working group had 9 meetings. There were 16 active participants and over 20 hours of work and collaboration among each of those members. There were 4 areas of focus. Each of our presenters tonight will talk about each one of these areas briefly, a high-level overview around curricular needs, academic coursework, staffing needs, and professional development. All right. Thank you. This is a list of all of the individuals that were involved in it. So we cover all sorts of variety of needs and all sorts of staff members from across the district. So to begin with tonight, we've got Lisa Picorni, who is our EL coordinator from Elk Grove High School. She's going to begin the presentation. I think you guys might have to move the slides along for me. On the work of the EL Task Force, and she's beginning there with our first guiding principles. Go ahead.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I'm going to address the curricular needs of the ESL 1 integration plan. So we started with our guiding principle to direct us in our work, and our guiding principle is we believe that EL students should have access to SEL support and core content curriculum with the necessary scaffolded strategies. Our goal is to engage every English learner in high-quality SEL and core content curriculum, instruction, and assessment designated to meet individual needs and foster academic growth. Within this goal, we have 4 objectives. So our first objective is to adopt comprehensive curriculum enabling rapid acquisition of the academic speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills needed for high school, college, and career. Part of our plan is we're currently in the process of adopting a LIFT curriculum, and that will incorporate as well personalized teacher training and support. Our second objective is to integrate Tier 1 social and emotional learning into core curriculum. Our plan is to have a subcommittee, which will be EL teachers, EL social workers, and counselors that will guide the SEL priorities and create a bank of resources that will include lessons and curricular materials. The third objective is to scaffold existing science, math, and social science curriculum by integrating academic language development into lessons. The TLFs and EL coordinators, they would hold summer workshops for teachers to work on using suggested strategies in the content area classes. And the fourth objective is to create diagnostic placement tests in math to ensure newcomer students are placed in proper courses and given appropriate credit for completed coursework. So the plan here would be to have a subcommittee that will create placement exams for each grade level math course. Are there any questions I can answer about our curricular needs related to the ESL integration?
I think maybe we'll wait for questions till the end. We have 4 very brief presentations, and then if you stay up here, we can answer questions. Thank you. And so Becky Kinney, our English Division Head from Wheeling High School, is going to focus on our academic coursework.
Good evening. The academic coursework section kind of covers what the day-to-day for a ESL 1 student would look like at the comprehensive school. So you can read the guiding principle. What we really believe is the students are having a really supportive and wonderful experience at Newcomer. And we really tried in this group to think about how can we take the great things that are happening there, but then marry them with some of the great things that are happening at our comprehensive schools that are more challenging for students to access at the Newcomer Center. Things like electives, clubs, activities, sports, fine arts. We've talked so much about those things tonight. And then also access to peers. So there are access to peers here, but at the comprehensive school it's just a little bit different and it will be a more robust experience for them. So those were the 2 main things that we were thinking about in this guiding principle. If you look at the goal, the main goal was to create learning opportunities that foster English learners' language development and academic progress in a supportive learning experience alongside their peers. And with those objectives, again, I know you have all of this in front of you, so I don't need to read it all to you, but kind of the 4 main things we were talking about. That first objective talks about the core curriculum, and we know that our ESL 1 students will need a lot of support to access that. But doing that at the home school would allow for some more differentiated opportunities for students who are ready for different opportunities. So for example, math. Lisa just talked a little bit about math. At the comprehensive school, there are many math courses that students can engage in with proper supports, and so bringing that program to the comprehensive home schools will allow for more differentiated opportunities for our students. The second thing is the career and fine arts courses in an elective sense. And our thought around that is we know our ESL 1 students need a lot of language support. We would be able to offer some survey type classes so that they could have a full view of the different career and fine arts opportunities that we have at the schools. Next, we have a need to plan for enrollment increases. As Dr. Lopez already stated, we know that there has been a huge population boom in this area. And so one of the things that we talked about was the need to plan for enrollment increases even over the course of a school year. Working at Wheeling, we have ESL students coming, monthly, weekly sometimes to register in our schools, and we need to be ready for that with staffing and programs as well. And then the last thing is because we know that our ESL 1 students and many of our ESL students need some extra support, we need to really think about some more teaming opportunities for our teachers so that they can wrap around those students and provide not just curricular and academic supports, but SEL supports as well. And so those are the 4 objectives within the academic coursework. The last slide in this section is just kind of a sample schedule, and again, this would be the responsibility of the different administrative teams to kind of work out what that would look like, but we just kind of wanted to put something down on paper as kind of the nuts and bolts of what that would look like for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. All right, and Jeff Wardle, principal from Buffalo Grove High School, is going to focus on staffing needs. He led that group.
Good evening. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight, and the team has been just amazing to work with over the last several weeks. So my component is around staffing needs, and I think as we look at the kind of celebrate the diversity that's coming to all of our schools through students that are coming, and just as a math guy, you have to give you a little bit of numbers. So one number I want to share that's kind of, I think, really exciting, just to understand the magnitude. If you take a snapshot of the students that are currently at 214 schools, about 12,000 students in total, 45% of those students, between 500 and 600 of those students, have or currently are EL students. So we talk, as we talked about our EL and teaching, what we say at all of our schools is, we are all EL teachers. But in the staffing component, we need some of those teachers to be specifically endorsed in EL so they can teach our sheltered classes. So that's what we're talking about really tonight more, is that specific endorsement. So the goal that we have, we go to the next slide there, just to ensure the appropriate staffing that we need, the endorsements, the number of staff that we need. And staff includes certified staff, ESP staff, and then some leadership staff as well. And so the 4 objectives that we have underneath this goal, the first objective talks about hiring. We've been doing this for a while. We have been hiring with specific needs and a focus on hiring that candidates that already have EL or are in the process of getting EL. At the very least, they know that they need to get EL endorsement very quickly. We've also, and really through Kate's office and Tim's as well, been very good at financially incentivizing reimbursements for current staff to get their EL endorsement. The second objective is just the number of staff that we need just in general to teach EL classes. A component you might not know about is that in the state code, a sheltered EL class is an EL class, class of just EL students. And those classes max out at 90% of the capacity of a class with non-sheltered EL. So that means our class sizes are a little bit smaller with EL, so we can get through all the needs of students. And so with that came a little bit additional staffing. We've worked it into our formula already, and we're really set in that area. And that would continue to grow a little bit with our EL1 students coming to the comprehensive high schools. The third objective talks about the ESP positions. Again, per the state code, when you have a certain number of students with a very specific language, in our district, that's Spanish, Russian, Polish, Ukrainian. Some buildings have only 1, some buildings have up to 3 of those. We need to have language supports in that home language. That's where our ESP support really comes in. Again, that's built into the formula, working with Kate and working with Tim and the team. And then the final one, as we look at some of our buildings, and we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We currently have some really good leadership support in every building. We have about a 0.8 EL coordinator. You see a teacher that's pulled out that's an expert in EL. What we've kind of found as we reviewed this is that we can really tier that support. And so as we look ahead, we're really kind of broke up into 3 groups. We have 2 schools that will have a smaller number of EL students. They don't need quite the same amount of support. 2 schools, Rolling Meadows and Buffalo Grove, have a little higher amount. We're going to add a little bit of support there. It's kind of a net zero gain. And then the proposal that we're going to bring to deck for a year and a half from now, fall of 25, fiscal year 26. When you get to the point of 500 or more students, we're talking 25, 30, almost 35% of your school building as EL. We really needed some dedicated leadership. And so we're looking for, potentially at that point, a small increase in FTE district-wide, about 1.2. When you look at all the things that need to happen for an EL student and now a magnitude of 500 to 600 students, professional development, standards alignment, evaluation, screening, testing, connecting with families, budget oversight, PLC leadership, state compliance, curriculum design. We just need a little bit, the schools need a little bit more support than they currently have with the growing numbers. So thank you very much, and now please Katie West.
Hey Jeff, real quick, because you shared with me earlier, when you started as principal, how many EL students did you have?
So this is my 10th year at Buffalo Grove. It's been great. We had 48 students when I started, and we were at 432 this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, incredible growth.
All right, and our last presenter is going to be Katie Weston. She's the World Language Division Head from Prospect High School. Katie's focused on professional development.
Hi, thanks so much for having us tonight.
You can move the microphone down there so you don't.
Thanks.
There you go.
I'm shorter than Jeff, sorry.
Everybody is.
So this last focus area centers on professional development and really how do we build capacity for all stakeholders that will either be direct points of contact with students or supporting our ESL 1 students as we integrate them into the comprehensive schools. And how do we do it in a way that is really intentional, it's thoughtful, and it allows us to build inclusive communities that are welcoming, and also allow students to show up as their authentic selves when they're in our home buildings. And so our guiding principle for this, if you want to go to the next slide, is we wanted to ensure that all stakeholders have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to meet the diverse needs of the whole student throughout their entire high school experience. And so while we're looking at integrating the SL1 students in the following year, we also are really kind of taking a longer vision on how can we think about their entire high school experience and what structures and systems do we need to put in place to ensure that they really do have access to all of the things that we've talked about about in some of the previous slides. And so the first objective focuses on building capacity for administrators to support this programming. The second objective focuses on building capacity for staff. And then the third looks at our bilingual paraprofessionals specifically. So to look at objective 4.1, it's how can we strengthen administrators' knowledge of English learner programs, EL performance data, instructional best practice, and teacher evaluation criteria. So some of the pieces that are related to this have to deal with state compliance, for example, as well as looking at our TBE and TPI programming, so ensuring that not only are we compliant, but are we also able to have the capacity to support teachers and staff in implementing instructional strategies in the classroom, as well as other programmatic needs. Objective 4.2 focuses on...
Katie, can you explain what TBE
Thank you.
TPI
Sorry, I apologize. So TBE stands for Transitional Bilingual Programming, and then TPI stands for Transitional Programming, or Transitional Programming for Instruction. So I apologize for using the acronyms. So the second objective focuses on providing opportunities for EL educators. And this also touches on the academic coursework piece and the curricular needs. And I think someone spoke to this directly as well, that, you know, there is, I think it might have been Jeff, there is an incentive right now for staff to obtain the EL endorsement, but ultimately all of the EL students, they're our shared responsibility. How can we ensure that our classrooms are inclusive communities and that our schools are inclusive and welcoming as well? And so we really want to make sure that all of our staff, regardless of whether they have the EL endorsement or not, would have access to this professional development in a way that they can build instructional strategies and best practices. And then the last objective focuses specifically on developing the knowledge base of our paraprofessionals on things like culturally responsive teaching practices to support our EL students. This could include things specifically like focusing on reading, writing, speaking, and listening strategies for things like language acquisition, as well as content and skills that they might develop in other classes as well. You can go to the next slide. So I mentioned before that we were looking at different stakeholders. So the previous slide was kind of a top-level look at administrators, staff, as well as ESP. You can see here that we've also kind of partitioned it out a little bit more specifically. So on the left, you have focus areas. In the middle, you have different stakeholders or audiences that we've identified, as well as a recommended amount of quantity of programming per year that we believe is a need, not a want, in order to integrate our ESL 1 students with fidelity into the comprehensive schools. So one of the audiences would be the API and the division heads. You can see that the focus area for this PD is on compliance, for example, as well as EL educator observations and evaluation processes. The next stakeholder group is the APSS and the student services staff. And so how can we ensure that there's proper course placement, for example? So as they're building out schedules for students, how can we make sure that students are not only appropriately placed, but also if they're going to be duly identified students for our special ed services as well, how can we make sure that they're identified appropriately? Special ed division heads and staff, how can we ensure that students who are duly identified are not only given those accommodations, but how do they actually have access to them as well? All staff building out effective instructional practices and strategies with a specific focus on immigrant and refugee students, as well as fostering language-rich classrooms and trauma-sensitive spaces, and recognizing that many of our EL students might come into our schools having experiences that some of us can't even imagine, right? And how can we make sure that they're supported in that? And then lastly, building capacity for our teacher leaders in the buildings, specifically TLFs, as well as our EL coordinators, things like Train the Trainer program, so they can help partner with administrators to develop the scope and sequence of what the PD looks like in the different buildings.
Thank you so much, Katie. And you can see here, Veronica sort of has laid out a 5-phase process that takes us all the way through August 2025 for implementation. When we began this working group, the question from DEC that they asked and that Dr. Rowe asked us was, okay, how quickly can this happen? What's the process going to take? And the group, through the work that and I was part of this group, but through all of our meetings and discussions, we quickly determined that it was not feasible to implement this sooner than fall of 2025, that it would take us this full year of planning, professional development, and all the things you've seen summarized here in order to do that effectively and successfully and meet the needs of the students. So we're going to sort of struggle a little bit one more year at the International Newcomer Academy with space, although Val is confident that we're finding spaces to make sure that works. And then for the fall of '25, fully transition students that are ESL 1 at the comprehensive high school. And you can see there we're in phase 3. And then as we move forward during all of next year and all of the work that you've heard summarized. So at that point, I would open the floor to any questions for any members of the teams or myself. Thank you.
Board members, go ahead.
Okay, I have questions for the three ladies. Sorry, Jeff, you're not included. I'll start with the last one. Katie, you said that, talk about state compliance. Is that a self-evaluation? And I only say that because if we haven't had state audit since 2015, I'm guessing that.
Yeah, so can you?
She mentioned that we have to be
compliant, yes.
State compliant, and since we haven't had an audit in 9 years.
So because we've had an audit, they're actually going to be back this fall to revisit us and to assess the plans that we submitted. We submitted a full plan of action of the steps we're going to take. They will be back to review to see where we're at. The significant change we've made for this fall is that we do have EL now at all 6 comprehensive schools, which we didn't have in the past. We don't have, which will happen, meaning including Prospect High School and Hersey High School.
Mm-hmm.
So that really was a significant step. This next step is going to be adding ESL 1.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Katie, sorry.
All right, Becky, in your slide, you said you used the term sheltered and integrated. What does that mean?
Yes, a sheltered course is a course that is only for EL students, so we can only put a student that has an EL designation in that course. An integrated course is just a general education class that EL students can be scheduled into. In terms of compliance, based on their test score, it tells us how many sheltered courses they have to do for us to be compliant. So an ESL 1 student is going to need at least 3 sheltered courses, but we would probably want to shelter all of the core unless they have pretty strong math skills coming in. And then in some of the other areas, we can integrate, like in a physical education class, ESL 1 students should be able to pretty successfully integrate.
Okay, so when you say sheltered, is that similar to what we heard maybe a month or two ago when we went to Wheeling and they talked about the REACH program?
So REACH isn't an EL program.
I know it's not.
It would be similar in that it's a classroom with only EL students taught by an EL certified teacher.
Right, and so the teacher rotation, is it the same?
No, because I teach a sheltered World Lit class, and so my students come to me for World Lit. Some of them, I'm their only EL class they see all day because they have a literacy score on their access test of 3.5 or higher. Some of them see multiple EL teachers a day, so they also might go to EL World History or EL Geometry. It just kind of depends on their skill level, their readiness level. So they're not cohorted throughout their day. They just go to different classes for different supports. And that was one of the things, when Jeff was talking about the need for leadership, I can speak to Wheeling, I'm sure Lisa can speak to the experience at Elk Grove. Scheduling over 500 students in sheltered and integrated classes to meet compliance and their needs is a very heavy lift that our A teams take every year, and we're constantly tweaking that process to be more successful, but that's something that we have our eyes on so that students get the right level of support but with the right level of challenge.
Okay, and then I got the last one for Lisa. And you mentioned that that you guys do a diagnostic placement test, but it was only for math. Why not the other subjects, especially like English? I mean, I would think that some students are probably farther along in their use of the language than others. Is that true?
So currently, right now, what happens is when a new student comes into our district, the EL coordinator will assess them using the WIDA screener. So the WIDA screener is going to give us their English level placement, and then they also take the access test once a year. in February, March, and we get those scores in May. So that would give us their English level. That English level will tell us how many classes that the student will take for compliance, right? They're either going to have one class, a minimum of one class if they're receiving low services, and at least 3 for high. However, that test does not tell us where they're at in their math placement. So sometimes we're looking at transcripts, and transcripts can look very, very different from different countries. And so trying to place them in classes sometimes needs to be corrected after they've already joined and teachers see what their math skills are. So by having a test at the beginning that we give them, it might be able to better identify the best math class for them and not have to go back and tweak that after they've started a class and changed their schedule. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, you guys were all great. Great presentation. Thank you. Thanks, Les.
Thank you.
Board members?
Mark, anything? If, maybe it'll be for you, Jeff, I don't want to leave you out. So as the numbers guy, we know that some of the sender schools are challenged with ESL, and then we get students that are a little behind.
Right.
So of the demographics that we have, how many are coming into our schools first time versus coming through a sender school? Do we have those numbers?
I can give you general. I think I understand your question. So currently, at least at Buffalo Grove, and I think it's similar at other schools, about half of the students that are EL were born in the States and have gone through the elementary school system but are still EL in high school. And a little bit less than half have come to the States at some point during the elementary career and have continued on, or have come now during high school.
Got it.
I can tell you, Laney, that number's changed recently. In the past, when we've looked at that, 2/3 of students, and this is national data, that's been valid here as well, where 2/3 of our students were born in the United States and are in EL and that are with us in high school. I think that number may have changed in the last couple of years because of the huge influx, but traditionally it's been up to 66 to 70% of students.
Yeah, and my follow-up question would be, I know, I don't want to speak for the other schools, but I know that you and Dr. Hubbard have really put a push on the sender districts for wheeling. Is that happening across our districts with all the sender schools?
Yeah, I mean, we meet regularly, myself, and so does Dr. Rowe, with all of our sender school districts. In fact, we're engaging in some specific curricular projects now with the sender districts for next year. And this is, we are all experiencing the same challenges of the increase in the population and trying to reassess how we're delivering instruction to help move kids along, to help them acquire the language academically.
And I think what won't be a quick fix, but will be a long-term goal, is all of the sender districts in the most recent meeting that Dr. Lopez and I had with them expressed the same desire of that strong connectivity and to do our best to ensure just a more synergistic handoff.
Yeah.
There's some program alignment improvements that can be made, and we all recognize that. And our meeting was about math, but we talked about EL as one of the avenues we really have to pay close attention to. And we share with the group and share with DEC our path to improvement in District 214 is through EL, hands down, without a doubt. And I just would, and if there are other questions, please, I welcome them. I just want to commend the group, Dr. Lopez and Veronica, Scott, and the team. You did a phenomenal job with this. This is, I asked for, we look at, programmatically tell the story of the why and build us a plan that people, new staff can come and engage with what you've produced and see our why, see where we've come from, and understand where we're going very clearly. It makes improvement very, very easy to follow. So I greatly appreciate the work. You hit it out of the park and set a gold standard for other programs to follow, because this will be our example moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Dessling?
I love technology. One of the things, I think the thing that bothers me the most is the staffing.
Mm-hmm.
We've had ESL programs ever since I've been on the board. Obviously, it's significantly higher than it was before. But when I look here at the needs, and what, obviously, it's going to keep growing. It's not going to get any less. I see the need for overall FTE, and EL endorsements, bilingual endorsements, overall endorsements. I got to believe that just about every state in Illinois or every school district in Illinois that's similar to where we are looking probably for the same thing. I'm looking at what that elevated level is of students we're getting in. I'm looking at 1.2 FTE is the addition for this time frame. That seems pretty small to me, quite frankly. I think that, and I'm certainly interested in how we're going to re-educate our staff to get them endorsements. That concerns me. And it also concerns me to how we're going to find these people that have to have ESL endorsements that we hire. And do we have enough people in this plan to do what we want to do here?
I'll start, and Jeff, you can finish. So we've partnered with the Illinois Resource Center, where we have a negotiated rate. Dr. Gabriella Seth-Jackson's in the audience. She leads that out of professional learning. And I don't know what our recent, do you know the number off the top, how many staff we've gotten through the program now?
Currently have about 73 teachers going through the program. I think after the summer, 20 plus will be finishing. There were 6 required courses for the ESL.
So we have a fairly affordable negotiated rate with the Illinois Resource Center to get our teachers this ESL endorsement, and we've had 73 teachers that have started the program. It's a sequence of about 6 courses, I believe. So it takes a good year and a half to finish.
How many do we need? I understand the numbers you got, but how many do we need?
In the district? Remember, we do have a strong core of teachers that already are EL. I think it depends on the building, right? So I can tell you generally, and I would ask Scott actually to chime in from his lens, but if I was principal of a school like Wheeling High School still and 500 students were EL, I'd want every single teacher in my building to have an EL endorsement.
Makes sense.
Because you need to have flexibility for placement. Whereas if you have a school that still has 100, 200 students, you don't need as many.
I understand.
So it depends on the building.
How about the ESP?
So support staff are directly correlated. There is a formula that, in part, it's if you have a bilingual teacher in the classroom or if you don't. If you have one, then you don't necessarily, from a compliance perspective, need the ESP. If you have a teacher that isn't a bilingual teacher and you need somebody who's speaking Ukrainian, then you need a bilingual ESP there. So it really is dependent on who are the students in those schools. I don't know, Scott.
I don't know if Ms. Kraft looked like she was about to chime in on the ESP side, I assume.
Well, just on the bringing in new staff. So my HR colleagues and I have started some organized conversation with the universities about what our needs are, and that we really can't continue to bring in any candidates who don't have this certification. And so every time I have the opportunity to speak at a university or to a class with my colleagues, we talk about the necessity of candidates coming out of college to have this in order to come into our high schools.
That gives me a great deal of confidence that we're doing that. And that gives me confidence in the staffing end of the thing, yes, by all means, and I'm sure there's going to be competition for those people all over. Gabriella, if it's okay with Laz and okay with Dr. Rowe, I want to contact you about that program and how we're getting those endorsements. I don't understand it because this is only going to grow. And there's so many things going on right now and in the district as far as programs, plans, strategic plans, and whatever else we're going to have. I mean, this is a real test.
It is vitally important, and I think what this process has accomplished for us is it's accomplished a tangible threshold for when we act and add staffing that is easy for us to follow and know when we need to act.
Absolutely, and I think
That's the big win here, I think.
I think the goals are certainly well thought out. I applaud the committee for doing this, but again, the proof is in the pudding, and it's not us. I mean, we're putting down the pudding. Or at least we're putting it in the bowl from the area of getting people here, getting the ones we have educated. That's the key. That's the key to what we got.
Yeah, an important point here, Mr. Dessling, is the number in those top 2 columns that it was actually a subtraction of a .2 FT and then in addition to .2 is because we already have a significant number of staff with those endorsements. And so that's a huge win. That's a celebration because there are many districts that do not.
That's a good analysis to do that.
I think it puts us in a position to serve our students at a really high level, and this plan is only going to allow us to strengthen that.
Believe me, I'm not complaining about the program. I think it's great. I think what they did is fantastic. I just want to make sure that we've got processes going to make sure we get the right staff and that we're hiring and to get those here educated with the endorsements. Thank you.
So, Kate, we
I better
just
get
had
some
a a hiring fair. And you saw a lot of people. How many would you say had or didn't have EL endorsements that you interviewed?
Well, it's hard to say at the hiring fair because I did more of the coordinating and the principals did more of the recruiting there. But I'll tell you that ISU is my favorite place to recruit. I went down there on Halloween this year and I was pretty disappointed at the number of candidates who are coming to us. It's at ISU, but candidates come from all the schools at the number, the percentage that had that endorsement. And so that's kind of started this energy. For a number of years, as Jeff mentioned, I think the principals have been pretty dedicated to making sure people come in and either have it or know it's an expectation really quickly.
I can give a concrete number. So I've been able to hire English teachers for the past 2 years, and every time I've posted a position, I've had somewhere between 80 and 100 applicants, and it always says ESL required because I work at Wheeling and I'm only going to hire an ESL endorsed English teacher at this point. So around 80 to 100 applicants, and I have to go through everyone to see if they have the EL certification because many people apply for the jobs who don't, and usually it's about 17 to 20 of them get a phone interview because they actually have an ESL endorsement. So that's that statistic held through for 2 years.
Yeah, as you say, this is a issue around the state. I sit on that, the association board as director of North Cook, and my counterpart from Flanagan said they're having a difficult time, and that's really rural. And so we're all looking for the same personnel, and it's going to be very interesting. Ms. Palmer?
Well, it strikes me, we're looking to go to our sender districts and tell them what we want in preparation from them pushing up. We should also perhaps be going to our colleges and universities that are training our teachers and saying, this is what we need from you, right? I mean, it's soup to nuts, and I realize we're just our district, but, getting that message out, I don't know how we're doing that and what we're doing about that, but if you tell them, we need it, perhaps they'll push it more.
Okay, thank you. Very nice
you.
presentation.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it,
Thank you.
everyone. Sorry it's a long evening, but really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we come to action items. So 9.1.1, approval of the contract for Deliver Ed Strategic Planning Partner. Dr. Rowe, anything to say?
Nothing to add.
Board members?
Very excited to be moving forward with this.
Yeah, this is something the board talked about during the superintendent interviews last year, that we really wanted this strategic plan, and here we are coming to fruition, so I know we're all looking forward to this. Hearing no comments, please call a roll. A motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call a roll.
Fiorito?
Yes.
Palmer? Aye. Dessling?
Yes.
Heineman?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Kreutzer?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Next for an action item is approval of accounts payable. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call a roll.
Palmer? Aye. Walker?
Yes.
Dessling?
Yes.
Fiorito?
Yes.
Heineman?
Yes.
And Kreutzer?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Next is approval of a financial report for 2024. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Fiorito?
Yes.
Palmer? Aye. Dessing? Yes. Heineman?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Kreitzer?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Next, I need a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in an educational setting or legal counsel for the public body, matters relating to individual students, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representative. Motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? There will be action after closed session, and how long do you think, Dr. Rowe? Half hour? Okay. Hopefully, half hour. Call the roll, please.
Palmer? Aye. Fiorito?
Yes.
Dessling? Yes. Heineman?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
And Kreitzer?
Aye. Thank you. Good evening.
You guys want to? Are we ready? I'm sorry.
Gotta wait for them.
There.
I'm waiting for the thumbs up over there. Oh, yeah. Okay, we are back in the open session. So we have 2 items to approve. Can I have a motion for 11.1.1?
I move that we approve the personnel transaction reports of April 11th, 2024.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion? Call the roll.
Fiorito?
Yes.
Heineman?
Aye.
Dustling?
Yes.
Palmer?
Aye.
Walker?
Yes.
And Kreitzer?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. 11.1.2, motion and a second, please.
I move for the approval of the modified job descriptions for Dean of Students and Activities and Operations Supervisor.
Second.
Been a motion and a second, discussion? Please call the roll.
Palmer? Aye. Walker?
Yes.
Dustling?
Yes.
Fiorito?
Yes.
Heineman?
Aye.
And Kreitzer?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn, first and second, please.
Second.
Can this be an all in favor?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And everyone said?
All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried.
It's
Good evening,
9:39.
everyone. Thank you.